All right, let's go ahead and get started. And hello and welcome everybody, wherever you are around the world. We are so happy for you to join us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening for our Global Engagements, Immigration Update, and Q&A session. My name is Andy Ng. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm one of the Global Programming Coordinators here in Global Engagement. And tonight, together with Counseling and Psychological Services, we're very happy to share some information with you all in regards to immigration updates and have an opportunity for you all to ask us questions during this intense time that we've all been having. And so we know that a lot of you here are also brand new UCSC Banana Slugs. So with that, we are so excited to welcome our brand new slugs to the family. We're also excited to hopefully see a lot of you that may have been remote this past year and are going to be in Santa Cruz for the very first time later this fall. We are very, very excited to be able to welcome you, hopefully in person when the fall quarter comes around, safely and to our beautiful and wonderful campus and city of Santa Cruz. So to get things started, I want to talk a little bit about our structure of the Division of Global Engagement. So as you can see on the screen here, the Division of Global Engagement is made up of 4 different specific units. We have International Student and Scholar Services, or ISSS, and those for many of you are very familiar with. They're the ones that help handle a lot of the immigration factors with you all, with visas and answering questions related to that. And they're going to be our main presenters this evening. We also have Global Programming, who are the ones that work with you all in terms of planning orientation, our global mentorship program, and extracurricular and co-curricular events that you all may be interested in joining us for throughout the summer and through the academic year. We also have Global Learning, formerly known as Study Abroad, and this unit helps with our students, helping them achieve their goals in terms of studying away, studying beyond the US, and areas like that. And we also have our unit of global initiatives, which helps maintain our partnerships with different institutions around the world and to give us these international opportunities. And so I'm a member of the global programming team. And with me today are also 2 of my fantastic colleagues, and I'll go ahead and have them introduce themselves, starting with Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andy. I'm Lisa Swaim. My title is Director of Global Programming, and there are 3 of us on our little team. So Victoria will introduce herself next. And I also wanted to say we're joined tonight by Dr. Sahai from CAPS, Nupur Sahai, and she'll introduce herself after Victoria. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, hello everybody. I am Victoria Hudak, and I am one of the other global programming coordinators with global programming here. And I'm glad you are all able to make it to our session tonight or this morning or this afternoon, whatever time it is back in your home country. And next, we'll have Nupur Sahai introduce herself.
Hi everyone, so great to be here. Curious about what time zones people are in, but thank you for joining us. My name is Nupur Sahai. I'm one of the counselors at the Counseling Center on campus. It's called Counseling and Psychological Services. I work closely with all the folks that you see here on the screen, with the International Student Office and with Global Programming. I'm going to share a little bit more about counseling in just a bit later on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And before we proceed, I just wanted to give a little quick reminder for everybody. This session is currently being recorded and will be made available online on the Global Engagement website. So if you have other friends or family members, or you want to go back and revisit the information that we shared today, that presentation portion will be available online at a later time. In addition to that, we encourage you all to definitely ask us questions during the session. A lot of your questions will be answered, but please go ahead and utilize the Q&A function on the Zoom webinar platform to ask us your questions and to see other questions that are also being asked by others in the same space. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to ISSS.
Thank you, Andy. And hi, everyone. I'm glad to have a chance to talk to you today. My name is Frank Calabrese, and I am the Director of International Student and Scholar Services. We are presenting this immigration update because we hope to answer a lot of your questions. So whether you are in the US or abroad, or whether you're a new student or a continuing student, we know that there's a lot going on and we know that you have a lot of questions. So we hope to be able to address them tonight, today, wherever it is that you are. And I want to start off by introducing the ISSS team. These are the people that you will go to as your first point of contact around campus for all of your questions, immigration mostly, but if you need help navigating campus, you can also start with us. And the advising team is led first by Adrienne Bergenfeld. She is the Assistant Director for International Student Services. Gabi Schmiegel is the Assistant Director for Sponsored Student Programs. So if you're coming, if you're sponsored by another organization or you have a scholarship, maybe you're a Fulbright, she is your main contact at ISSS. We have two international student and scholar advisors, that's Vanessa Ori and Elisa Sweet. And we have Lena Lee, who is our office manager. She is probably the first point of contact if you ever come to visit us in person, or if you're reaching out to ISSS via email or via chat. She may be the one that answers you first before you get to talk to an advisor. So I will move along to Adrienne Bergenfeld, who will start us off. She'll talk a little bit about how tonight will look and present the first couple of informational slides. Adrienne.
Thanks, Frank. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you join us this morning, this afternoon, tonight, whatever time zone you're in. We know that it's been quite a unique past year for everyone involved, and we know that even moving forward into this academic year, it's going to be a little bit different than most intended. However, please know all of us at Global Engagement at UCSC are here to support you. And even those outside of the direct offices, such as the resource centers and other things, which we'll touch on later, we are all here to make sure you have a wonderful experience and succeed in your program. The first thing we want to start off with tonight is to do a little bit of what we consider housekeeping, to talk about the rules about this Zoom webinar. So in order for you all to receive the most information and to make it the best experience for all involved, we have a few standing rules. Number one, please utilize the question and answer function of the Zoom webinar to ask your questions. We will not be utilizing the chat function whatsoever. Next is please keep your questions to those topics that have already been discussed. So you'll see we'll be moving through topics. The reason for this is that we want to, most of your questions we will probably answer in the duration of our presentation. If we don't answer those questions, at the end of this webinar, we'll open it up to what we just call general potluck. So whatever questions you have, at that time, it'll be a great time for you to ask us. We also ask that you ask questions that are general in nature and not specific. If you have a specific case about your question about your I-20, your own situation, we ask that you email us at iStudent if it's immigration related, or if you have questions about events or orientation, please email our amazing global programming team. This allows us to again answer the most questions and make sure the information is pertinent to all. This webinar will be recorded and it will be posted online for a short period of time at the conclusion of the webinar. So if you did miss something, you are more than welcome to go back and review that information. If you miss seeing our lovely faces, you can do it in the webinar, or you're always welcome to go into how to contact us, and our pictures are there too. All right, next slide, Andy. So for I-20 issuance, for those of you that have not been in the US, either you attended last year time. We appreciate your patience and understanding as we move through those applications and work to process those as quickly as possible. Please realize it'll take us about 10 to 15 business days once all items are approved and reviewed for us to issue you the new document. All immigration documents will be delivered electronically via the iGlobal portal. This is great news for you all and for us because it gets it to you faster, plus it saves you on shipping. So just look for that email and you'll get it. Next thing is SEVP is obviously still allowing electronic I-20s. Nobody requires a physical I-20 to apply for a visa. However, you will need to print the I-20 and sign it to make sure that it is a valid I-20. Lastly, do not forget all that great information on the orientation checklist in iGlobal. We put this together not because we need to know the information, but because it's important information for you. This information is really laid out to give you a good basis and start to join us at campus. If you have questions on anything in iGlobal, please reach out and ask us, and definitely take the time. It's in your benefit to do both checklists that you're on. Next slide, please, Andy. So for those of you that are going to receive an initial I-20, which basically means you are not a SEVIS transfer or you are not in the US currently, you will be required to be in one in-person class. Right now, fall enrollment is looking both in-person and online, depending on the course you'll choose. All 4 fall classes are posted at this time, so you're more than welcome to go on and get an idea about which courses you want to enroll in. You most likely don't have a time slot just yet to sign up, but you can spend all the time you'd like reviewing that. There's COVID-related guidance from March 20th that has been extended through this academic year. So if you had been in the US prior to last year or this year, you're going to notice some things are different. That is due to the pandemic. Continuing students can remain abroad and you may keep an open active SEVIS record as long as you maintain the conditions of your F1 status or J1 status by maintaining full-time enrollment. Current continuing students who are already in the US can also maintain their status by being enrolled fully either online or in person classes, depending on what you want. We will also use the terms online and remotely interchangeably in this presentation. Please realize both online and remote means that you will not be physically in person for that class. What you'll notice when you're looking at the different courses is there's some courses that have your discussion remotely, but then the lecture will be in person or vice versa. So really take some time and review the emails that have been sent about fall courses and take the time to understand the courses you're looking at. Next slide, Andy. For continuing students who began your studies abroad during the 2021 academic year, you will now enter the US with an initial I-20, which, as I said before, you'll need to make sure you're enrolled in at least one in-person course. That is where it's a face-to-face. It may, typically we'd like you to be in a lecture course, so the main lecture. We will check that, and if you are not enrolled in an in-person course, when we do check in, we will let you know. New students who are entering the US for the first time, again, must also enroll in an in-person course before attempting to enter the US. Typically, the embassies or consulates or the Border Patrol like to see your schedule showing, yes, indeed, I'm following the rules. I'm aware I need to be in an in-person class. Please let me in so I can become a banana slug. Students who have been admitted to study here but are unable to travel to the US may begin their studies remotely. If that occurs for you or to you, let us know and we're more than happy to walk you through any steps or questions you may have. Next slide, Andy. I'll turn it over to Frank at this time.
Thanks, Adrienne. So I'll talk a little bit about the situation at the consulates and emergency visa appointments. I know that's a question that many of you have. I'll start off by saying that many of the consulates are open and they are continuing to operate at only a limited capacity or offering only emergency visa services. So we know that even though they're open, many of you may find it frustrating that you are having a hard time scheduling an appointment. Either it says none are available, or it says you can have an appointment in July 2022, or something that really isn't very useful to you. So an appointment, even if you get it, might be too far in the future. We should point out that you are eligible to get a visa up to 120 days prior to your program start date. So we know that we're already within that window for fall, and we know that you're trying your best to get a visa appointment. There's not that much that we can do to advance your visa appointment at the moment, but what we do want to point out is that once we are within 60 days from your start date, so that will be in late July, you will be eligible for what's called an emergency visa appointment. And this is something that you can request in the portal, the DS-160 portal, when you went to schedule your visa. you can just point out that you are within 60 days of your program start date, and you can request an emergency visa appointment at that time. There's no additional documents that you'll need. You don't need a letter of support. You don't need to show hardship or any of that. You just need to show that your program start date is within 60 days, and you will be eligible for an emergency appointment. In the meantime, do continue to check the visa wait times at your local consulate. This is available in the Department of State, and they do fluctuate a little bit. So it could be that they bring more people back to work, or it could be that the restrictions that are in place are relaxed and they're allowed to have more people and capacity increases. And so in that case, the appointments might be more easy to come by. In the meantime, we do ask for your patience and a little bit of faith that once we arrive at 60 days prior to the program start date, you will qualify for an emergency visa. Can we go to the next slide, Andy? So currently, you may have heard of national interest exception. You know, I'm sure by now that depending on where you come from, there are still quite a few travel restrictions in place imposed by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. That's our main public health organization here in the US. So these restrictions affect a great part of the population, of our international population. Many of the people who make up our population come from these countries, which are China, India, Iran, Brazil, and South Africa, as well as the Schengen zone, which is most of Western Europe, and the UK and Ireland. So if you've been in any of these countries in the previous 14 days, most people will not be permitted to enter the US and will have to spend 14 days in a third country prior to coming into the US. Now, that sounds a little intimidating, but fortunately, if you're coming in F1 or J1 status, this does not affect you. You are eligible for what's called a national interest exception. And this applies automatically to F1 and J1 students who are coming to begin program August 1st, 2021 or later. So these students will automatically be granted an exception and be permitted to enter the US. They can enter the US one time under this exception, and it should be within 30 days of the issuance of your visa. Now, there's no additional steps. Again, there's no additional steps that you need to take to qualify for this exception. One thing you do want to keep in mind is that for continuing students, especially if you are returning to the US and you've got a program start date that begins prior to August 1st, so this is almost all of our continuing students, there is not currently this exception in place. So we're monitoring, we're keeping it in mind, and we'll communicate more information as we learn it. But currently, if you are a continuing student with a program start date prior to August 1st, this does not apply. And I do want to stress, just all in all, that traveling right now is a tricky game. There's a lot at play. So definitely, we urge you caution in traveling. If you especially if you're already here in the US and you're not sure when you'll be able to come back, we urge caution. If you are coming from abroad, we would like to see you come to campus in person, of course. But just keep in mind that traveling is, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding traveling. So we urge you to be cautious and reach out to any of our advisors to let them know what it is you're thinking about your travel plans, and they can talk you through the best way to reduce the risk while you're traveling. Next slide, Andy. So a lot of you have asked questions about travel and entry into the US, and this is something that used to be pretty routine. And now it's still pretty routine, but there's just a little bit of caution involved, right? So when you're entering for the first time, you need to make sure that you have the valid I-20 that Adrian spoke about a little earlier, a valid visa, and of course your passport that's good for at least 6 months into the future. Now, if you're coming for the first time as an initial student, or if you are returning to the US from a leave, you should also bring proof of enrollment in an in-person course. So because of the requirements that are in place due to the COVID-related guidance, new students have to enroll in at least one in-person course, because the logic behind that is that the US SCVP looks at it. If you are not taking any in-person course, then they question your motives for coming to the US. And so we get around that by just making sure that you're in one in-person course prior to your arrival in the US for initial students and for continuing students who are returning from leave. Now, really all you need to do to satisfy this is print out, make sure that you've registered for your courses, print out your course registration. If it doesn't indicate on your course registration, you may just ask for a letter from your instructor indicating that the course is in fact in person. Now, anyone coming to the US, flying to the US from abroad, US citizens included, will need to show proof of a negative COVID test prior to being permitted to board their flight. This test should be given within 72 hours, and they'll check it at the airport before they check you in. This applies even if you are fully vaccinated. So even if you have documentation of your vaccination, you need to show that you have a negative COVID result. Or if you've recently had COVID, then you need to show that you have been recently recovered as well. And so we would encourage you, this is subject to change. We have the CDC website up there. We encourage you to check that frequently. Certainly check it before you plan on coming to the US. We'll communicate any major changes as well. And this just keeps you up to date on what the requirements are. They do tend to change. One of the things that, not necessarily COVID related, but it's advice that we give to our arriving students all the time, is that treatment of arriving international people varies between airports and varies between officers. It could be that some airports are more lenient, some airports ask for more documentation, some officers ask for more documentation depending on whether they had breakfast that day or whether they're in a bad mood or whether they're more welcoming. So just keep that in mind. When you are at the airport and they're asking you some questions, we hope that they will just look at your papers, stamp you in, and wish you good luck. Sometimes they ask you more specific questions about what you're doing and what you're up to. Our advice when faced with these kind of questions is to answer honestly, but to not offer any more information than is asked. We know that sometimes when faced with an authority figure, people maybe don't want to talk, or maybe they talk a lot because of anxiety or because they're nervous. So our advice is to try your best to answer the questions honestly, but to answer no more than is asked. And the other main point to keep in mind about travel is that we really need you to arrive in the US by the first day of classes, especially given that an in-person class is a requirement of entry for new students. We want to make sure that you're here to attend that class. And we've also seen some questions at the border for students that arrive late. They want to know how, the officer would like to know, how can you be required to attend class if the class has already started and you haven't been attending? So we definitely encourage you to arrive by the first day of class. Next slide. So we know that this housing is, I'm going to talk a little bit about housing, and we know that this is something that's also on a lot of your minds. University housing will be open in the fall, and it will be available to students in a limited capacity. This is for your safety and the safety of everyone around you. As we return to a more normal life, we are rolling it out gradually. So the campus and housing are preparing for a smaller on-campus population than usual. So new first-year students and new transfers, and this includes international students, will be among the students prioritized for university housing this fall. So you may not have heard yet about your housing assignment. or your college assignment, but it's coming soon, and we hope to be able to prioritize all of our new and returning students, especially those students who have enrolled in an in-person course. Now, we can help as best we can to direct your questions, but for housing, all of your questions should really be directed to the housing office. They can offer the most up-to-date, the most accurate information. And we have the link here on the slide. It's housing.ucsc.edu/COVID-19. Next slide. A lot of you have also asked about COVID vaccinations, and we do have a very evolving plan for COVID vaccinations that involves first and foremost safety of the campus, of you, of everyone else on campus. And part of the plan for the COVID vaccinations for the fall is that we are encouraging all of the students who can to get vaccinated before coming to the US. Now, we know that not everyone is eligible for vaccinations. Not everyone is coming from a place where vaccinations are widely available, and we understand that. So with that in mind, if you can't get vaccinated before you get here, you will be able to get vaccinated once you arrive. And the Student Health Services is currently working on a plan to make sure that everyone who needs a vaccination can get one. They will communicate that as we move forward through the summer. So one of the other questions we often see is which vaccinations are acceptable. And this is also an evolving list, but there is if you check in the Student Health Services portal in your Health eMessenger portal, there is a drop-down list. When reporting your vaccinations, you can see which vaccinations are available in the Health eMessenger. And next slide. So I think I'm going to pass back to my colleagues at Global Programming, and they will talk a little bit about orientation, and I'll leave it to them. I look forward to answering your questions later.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank. So regarding international student orientation, so this for undergraduates, this is in addition to SLUG orientation and in addition to the iGlobal work that you're doing, the work that you're doing online through iGlobal, we will be having a session for all students, all undergraduates who will be remaining remote. Sorry, my dog. All students who will not be in the US for the fall who are undergraduates on Wednesday, September 15th, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. So we'll be sending you emails, so you'll have that in writing and you can check the time zone in your home country. And then all new undergraduates who will be in the US for the fall, including transfers and exchange students, Sunday, September 19th, we'll be meeting with you online. So that'll be slightly different information because you'll be here for the fall quarter. On Monday, the 20th, we'll have a family orientation for undergraduate families, and we will also record this and we will caption it later in English and in Mandarin Chinese for families who would like to read the captions and may not follow as well in English. And then on September 12th for graduate students, oh no, this is actually, I think that's the wrong date, Andy. Is it the 21st?
My apologies, it should be the 22nd.
22nd. That doesn't look right. The 22nd. So it's the day before classes start. There'll be an international graduate student orientation, one session at 8 a.m. Pacific for students who are remote, and a second session for students who will be in the US, who are in the US at that time. And then lastly, we'll be doing something additional for transfer students related to transfer student services. And we'll have a panel of international transfer students talking with you about adjusting to life as a transfer student. So again, you don't have to remember this, and we will be emailing you all of those details, but we look forward to meeting with you in these smaller groups in September. Thank you so much. And Andy, next slide.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And yes, again, for graduate students, that is Wednesday, September 22nd for your orientation. So alongside the orientation, I wanted to share a little bit about some of the opportunities that we have for co-curricular engagement with all of you as students and as scholars too. So we first want to talk about the graduate preparation program, which is happening virtually online in August. This is a great opportunity for any international graduate student that's interested in honing in on some of their English skills, their teaching skills. And while it is predominantly designed to help prepare international students that are becoming TAs for the fall quarter, it is a good opportunity to also meet other international students. And so more information about GPP is available on our website, and please reach out to us if you are interested. Registration is open for that program right now. We also have our amazing Global Mentorship Program, which is a program that is designed to help support all of our new incoming international students. So every student that is coming in will be paired up with a global mentor, typically by your college association. And this global mentor could either be a fellow international student that is continuing, or it could also be a domestic student that is interested in internationalization. And so this person will serve as your mentor, your orientation leader, and they'll also be your guidance support starting through the summer and going into the academic year. And so we're looking forward for all of our incoming students to connect with their global mentors this summer. They will be contacting you probably around early July, if not earlier, to get acquainted and to introduce themselves to you. So definitely look out for those emails from your global mentors if you are a new incoming student. And along with that, after our fall orientation that Lisa had just mentioned, we'll be doing hopefully a series of follow-on orientation sessions with you all. Our hope is to be able to provide these follow-on sessions, hopefully in small groups in person, so that you'll be able to meet not only your global mentors, but other folks that are within your college in your small mentee groups. And so with follow-on orientation, there'll be opportunities where global mentors will lead you in different community building activities. They'll have some great real talk conversations with you all about life at Santa Cruz at the UC and what it's like to be an undergraduate student. And we're also excited to share a few different cultural sessions with all of you to get more integrated into the US and to get integrated into Santa Cruz in general. So definitely look out for more information about those sessions as the summer rolls on. And then of course, finally, I also wanted to share that with global programming. Again, our unit designs different events and opportunities for engagement for all of our students and scholars. So we will continue to offer a robust number of online events. Some of them will be starting this summer. And so you'll be getting emails about these events very soon. And then hopefully as we transition back into a more in-person experience, we're going to be able to offer some of the activities that we've done in the past, which can include day trips to areas around the Bay Area and in Monterey Bay. One of our popular ones is heading to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So we're hoping to be able to offer that this year once again. And we also do different mixers, socials in Santa Cruz, and different intercultural competency workshops as well for all of our students. So we have a lot of different things planned for all of us, and we're hoping to be able to do not only some of them online for those that are staying remote, but hopefully again, in person. And now I'll pass it over to Dr. Sahai to talk a little bit about counseling and psychological services.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here and to connect with all of you. So first, I'd like to say welcome. What an exciting time for all of you to be here and to get ready. I remember about 10 years ago, I started my journey as an international student, and I came here for my doctorate. And at the same time, I'm going to say my heart goes out to all of you. It's such a difficult year, and especially with COVID, the kind of sort of suffering we've seen this year is unimaginable. And I know many of you, depending on the countries you're in, are still going through really tough times. So my heart goes out to you and your families. So the reason I wanted to talk about counseling and psychological services is, I want to give a little bit of background about what counseling services are like in the US campuses, what kind of support is given to students. And I am a counselor, I'm a therapist, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I specialize in working with international students. So I want to talk a little bit about why these services are provided, and also specifically at the UCSC campus, how do we go about supporting students? So as you can imagine, international students experience a range of stressors and a lot of uncertainties that can often lead to just anxiety around what's going to happen next. Is my visa going to be approved or not? What is the next steps? And right now with COVID and everything that we just heard, there's a lot of different layers of uncertainties, and that is so understandable and human that you folks may be going through that. Also, when students start studying, there is, a series of phases folks can go through. So initially there could be a lot of excitement, then later on a lot of homesickness could kick in. You have left behind a support system in your home country, you're establishing a new support system in a new country. It's a lot of transition. You're navigating language, you're navigating learning the customs in a new culture. So there's a lot of stressors and a lot of uncertainties that you're dealing with on a daily basis. But having said that, the research today also tells us that, international students can really build a lot of resilience through all the adversity that they go through. So I come from a very strengths-based approach. So I remember my ability to talk in Indian English with my Indian friends, and also with my, American friends, I was able to switch into some American English. And now when people ask me what my accent is, I'm like, I'm not sure. I think it's a bit more global. Or I remember the experiences of sharing food and cuisine from different parts of the world. It's sort of international coffee hours and getting to learn so much about different cultures. And that's a skill that I couldn't have gotten in any other way except for coming to the US. So you're able to develop skills that help you navigate through cultures simultaneously. For me, I can say always, I feel like my mind is, during the day, I'm here in the US working. And in the evening times, I'm thinking of India and connecting with family back home. So it's a really advanced skill to be able to code switch when you're talking, to be able to navigate languages, to be able to navigate different cultures and hold both of those beautiful, rich experiences. So as much as there is adversity, there is also resilience that comes with it. Having said that, when we talk about health and we talk about well-being, I come from a perspective of looking at health and wellness from a cross-cultural, a very broad perspective that looks at the individual holistically and emphasizes the need for building community-based care. And also there are models of health and healing. Many of you have grown up in cultures where a lot of emphasis is given on holistic healing, mind, body, spirit, connection, and wellness. So I'll just take a small example. For example, anxiety. Anxiety often happens when I'm facing something that's unknown or that's uncertain, or I'm feeling a sense of self-doubt, or I don't know who I am and I'm still forming my identity. So just as an example, or it could also be an external stressor, like you're dealing with COVID right now, where there's things that are beyond your control. So a mind, body, spirit perspective on health and wellness would be, how do we navigate this in different ways and address it through all of these areas? So for the mind, I often tell students to think about reframing techniques. And these are skills we already do. That's what you do when you have a phone call with a friend and your friend is really worried and you're trying to reassure them. And so this is a way in which we talk to ourselves and we remind ourselves and reframe and say things like, I have survived this before. I can survive this again. This is not an emergency. It's an opportunity for me to learn coping skills, for me to get connected with resources, to ask questions, and to find a way to grow. I know it's easier said than done. And when I first heard these, I was like, yeah, that sounds really easy. But that's why you have support available, whether it's with the advisors at Global Programming, at the International Student Office, or with counselors at the Counseling Center. With the body, this is a really powerful technique called grounding, where we teach students to find ways to sort of bring their mind home to their bodies. So instead of going down an anxiety spiral of this, I don't know, that I don't know what's going to happen, we use a lot of deep abdominal breathing that signals to the brain it's okay to calm down. And we help you sort of ground yourself by connecting to the earth. A lot of indigenous cultures actually have very, very beautiful grounding techniques integrated in daily practices. And then spirit, and this one I would say is just really close to my heart. And mindfulness has become the new buzzword in the West, but it's something that's existed in all cultures. And really, for mindfulness, even if you're not a spiritual person, here what we're talking about is your spirit, your core, your inner voice, and mindfulness at a daily basis, whether it's a meditation practice or it's a way for you to connect with nature. It just really helps you come back and center yourself and come home to who you really are. So as you all are going through these challenging times and also exciting times of getting started for your education in the US, I encourage you to think about ways in which you can integrate mind, body, spirit connection and wellness into your life right now. Andy, could we go to the next slide? So these are some of the things we talk about at the Counseling and Psychological Center. So at UCSC, like I've written there, we want to see you thrive, we want to see you build community, and we want to see you flourish academically and make the most of your time here. So part of the resources that are available to you includes the Counseling and Psychological Services Center. We often work in collaboration with Global Programming. In the past, we've done a lot of workshops around anxiety. I also offer workshops related to self-worth, around anxiety, around mood, a lot of different topics that I'd address. Acculturation is another topic that is very, very important to think about. Sort of how do you hold on to your home culture and also integrate to the culture in the US. So Counseling and Psychological Services at UCSC provides multiple resources for students. Currently, we are able to provide individual support online through case managers who can even get you connected to counselors in your home country. And if you're here in the US, we can provide you one-on-one counseling. Similarly, we have group therapy available, and there's a range of groups that are available, including how do I understand myself better? How do I connect with people who may have a similar identity, such as a queer identity? And we also have drop-in sessions. So Let's Talk is just a drop-in session. You don't need a counseling appointment. You don't need a group appointment. You can just drop in and talk to a counselor. All these resources are available on our website if you'd like more information. We also have specialized toolboxes that are for anxiety and mood. We are definitely going to be offering them in the fall semester. Crisis services. Sometimes, as you can imagine, students just experience a very acute crisis. So these are situations where students may even have thoughts of hurting or harming themselves. They may really need to talk to someone because they're in extreme distress. They could be having a panic attack. They're not able to manage that. So we have crisis services available for our students. You can call our number, make an appointment, or you can just walk into the counseling center. It's located at the Student Health Center. We are offering online services at this point, and I'm sure as fall quarter comes along, we are going to be offering more in-person services. So this is all I have from Counseling and Psychological Services. We are located at the Student Health Center and also across campus in multiple offices. Wishing you all the very best and looking forward to your exciting journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahai, for that. And definitely, students, please go ahead and use these resources. They are here and they are imperative to our success as well. So thank you again. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our Q&A portion of the session. I'll also be stopping the recording. And again, this will be made available online on the Global Engagement website at a later time for you to look back into and share with your friends, colleagues that may have missed this session. So if you have any other questions, please go ahead and drop them into the Q&A portion, and our staff members here will be able to help address them in real time.